Well, good evening. Glad to have you back on Let's Talk. Well, it's time. We're going to be talking about relationship. We're going to be talking about telling our stories over the next few weeks. Join us as I talk to many couples about what's happening in marriages today. We have Pastor Kim Bates and her husband that will be joining us and a few others as she battled lupus during her marriage. And tonight we want to talk about marriages in the Bible. So I want you to get ready how we're going to see in the Bible, these things happen from the beginning. Nothing is new under the sun. The Bible declares that there's nothing new under the sun. Our current culture did not invent infidelity, divorce, deception, betrayal, loss, infertility, disappointment. It's in the Bible. From Genesis on, you'll find it. As we look tonight, as many of the couples in the Bible, we will glean from them how to overcome, how to stay the course through the worst of situations and circumstances. How, when we put God in the center of our relationship, we can overcome many challenges life would bring us. These couples did not live a fairy tale life. They did not necessarily live happily ever after, but they did live happily even after. And I want to show you that tonight. Even after all the pain, the failures, infidelity, disappointment, setbacks, they stayed together and weathered the storm. Sometimes it's so difficult holding on to your marriage, praying for your marriage, keeping it together, the work that's involved. In Malachi chapter 2, God says he hates divorce. He says it deals treacherously with the person when they have to go through divorce. What does that mean? He said, when you go through divorce, there's guilt, there's betrayal, there's disloyalty, deception. It talks about deceitfulness, being in a fear, blended family. So many things happen in divorce that really causes a lot of pain. And God says, I hate it. I hate divorce because I know it's going to be treacherous on someone. Let's talk about Adam and Eve tonight. Let's look at the first family of the Bible. Let's take a look at them for a minute. The first recorded couple, we watched them. God gave them boundaries. You know, we talked about boundaries a few weeks ago. God told them, planted the Garden of Eden, put them in the Garden of Eden, tell them, don't touch the tree of good and evil. What did they do? They touched it. Wind up causing man to fall into so many different situations. But one of the things I like what God said in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 18, God said, it's not good for man to be alone. That's what he said. I didn't say that. God said that. He said, it's not good for man to be alone. He said, I need to make that person a helper comparable to him. Jesus was alone for prayer, but he always surrounded himself with people. And what I see God telling us, whether it's marriage, whether it's a family, whether it's church, it's good to be connected with people. It's good to be in good, wholesome relationships. Every sister needs a sister. The brothers need their brother. We need each other. But in the marriage is something so different. I don't know. Listen, I've been married a long time. As I was working on it today, I thought to myself, wow, I love being married. I do. I don't like being single. I don't like the dating scene and all of that. I'm not the one for that. Everybody's got to know their limitations. But I love being married. I was married for 20 years in my first marriage. I was divorced for 4 years, and I've been married 22 years in this marriage. So 42 years of my life I've been married. And so when I look at it, I think, my goodness, having to learn someone, having to go through all the things that you go through to make marriage work. And here we are now. In fact, nature, all of us desire companionship. It's just our nature. We want to be around somebody. You want to share your story with somebody. You want to come home and tell somebody what you did today at work. And you want to tell somebody your dreams and your goals. Whether it's, a marital relationship or just friends. We all desire relationship. And one of the greatest threats to our well-being is the fact that so many times betrayal comes, things happen, and it affects us. And we see that with Adam and Eve. We see their story. We see the things that they have gone through. And it's not easy, but that was a part of their relationship. Listen, isolation. Who wants to be isolated, not with anyone? Even when you think about going to a movie, out to dinner, you just like companionship. And that's one reason God says it's not good for man to be alone. Listen, when you get married, you find out a lot of things about yourself. that you didn't know when you were single. The Bible says you need a helper that is compatible, somebody that works with you, that gets along with you, that connects with you. Didn't say he's going to make you perfect, because nobody can make you perfect. Listen what God is saying. He doesn't want you to be alone. He wants you to have somebody, but he wants to choose it. Did you realize that he chose Eve for Adam, took him from the rib? He did that. Here's when the problem comes in, when we decide we're going to do it our way, when we want to choose what we think. And we don't realize the only person that knows the heart of a man is God. I want God to choose for me, because even when God chooses, people still have their own heart. They make their own decisions. I think many times when we think God chooses or made for us, that it's going to be wonderful. But I don't know if anybody who woke up every morning and said, woohoo, I'm glad I'm married. No, there's some days you're like, I can't believe I have to go through this. Yeah, marriages are not the easiest thing. And so we've got to remember so much that God wants us to walk in a way in our relationships that's pleasing to him. Some people do not survive the traumas of marriage. They don't. Because some, you wake up one morning, a child drowned, a spouse left, loss of a job, disagreements in the relationship. Many times when I look at couples when they're in the first year of marriage, it's horrible. I've seen people who in the first years of marriage, they pack their bags at least 5 times to go back home. I'm out. Then I see other couples in their first years of marriage, they're so excited, they love each other, they plan things together. It's like, whoa. And then after a while, marriage begins to set in. I'm not meeting my goals. I don't feel like this. I don't feel like that. And the weight of life comes in. No matter how excited you are in your marriage, you've got to look for those seasons when you don't like being married. You feel the weight of it. You feel not good with yourself. You feel your body changing, especially women. I don't know. I can't speak for the men. Maybe my husband and some of the guys will share with you, but I can't speak for them. But I know for women, sometimes your body's going through changes, things are happening, and you just like a spot for yourself to go somewhere and just sit it down and just you and God, because you're going through changes. And in marriages, I think marriages go through so many changes, and you're living with somebody and they're there with you as you evolve. You're changing, your mind is changing, your emotions are changing. You don't even know what you're going through. You can't even explain to them what you're going through. And so this is what I see happens many times in marriages. I'm watching my daughter-in-law. She's raising her babies now, and her body's going through changes. And I'm like, baby, wait just a couple more years. There's another shift coming, and there's another shift coming. At 66, I've been through about 5 shifts. The shifts with the children. Come on, somebody. The shifts with the children. Then I was single mother raising my children by myself. Then got married again. Then I was in a blended family. And then now we're doing the at home by ourselves piece. We've been through about at least 5 different changes in life. And all of them, you have to adjust to every season of your life. And your poor husband sometimes don't even know which season you're in, because you don't even know what season you're in, because everything is happening so fast with life. So it's so important for us to understand. Then you have marriages where they have infidelity. Somebody falls from grace. And you can't decide if you want to divorce the person or stay with the person. Because everybody who has committed some form of adultery or infidelity in the marriage don't necessarily divorce. Sometimes they get counsel, they work through it, and they stay together and try to rebuild. Other couples say, I can't live with, I just can't trust anymore. I can't do it. And they don't live together. So they move on from each other. But when God says, I hate divorce, it's because he knows the pain it costs, the pain in the children, the pain in the spouse. Most women, when they get divorced, don't live the same level of life that they had before. Many times it was never planned. They don't have a job. They didn't get educated, and they just got comfortable. And then here now they got to start all over again. So life has so many hits and bumps in it. So then we get into relationships and find out we're married to someone with a lot of unresolved issues. How about that? I've got unresolved issues. He's got unresolved issues. And we got into marriage and unpacked the suitcases. And I'm finding out things about him that, what? And he's finding out things about me, and he's saying, oh my gosh, he didn't know that. And so here we are. How can we work through the unresolved issues of life? I want you to make sure you send me some notes, send me some hits. Tell me what you think about that. Tell me how you feel about working in relationship. How many of you got into a relationship and found out things that you didn't know, even about yourself? Let's not think about your partner. How you would handle something that came up. How you would respond when something was said to you. How did you respond when your body wouldn't respond like you wanted it to respond? How do you feel about that? Or sometimes you get married and you thought, oh, we're going to do this, 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 and this, to find out, no, that person doesn't desire to do that. So we see all of these happening in relationships. Some people do not survive the traumas of marriage. They wind up getting divorced. Real love doesn't stop when you hit a problem. What I've learned, if God is in it, we can work through every situation. We can go to him. We can cry out to him. He wants us to work through every situation with him. And that's important. It's always figure out how to forgive and how to overcome. Ever thought about that? Ever had something happen to you in your marriage and you have to let it go? And it's easy to say, oh, I forgive. But then here comes that trigger again. Something triggers you and you say, I thought I let it go and I didn't let it go. Or you said something to your spouse and you thought, okay, I'm sharing my heart. Here's my story. And then you have an argument and they bring up the thing that was you had just buried. You shared it and you were done with it. And they trigger you again by bringing it up. And you said, they said something like this. Well, I'm not like your first husband. I didn't do this. Don't. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, don't say that. Oh, don't bring that up because this is going to trigger something else. And that's what winds up happening in so many relationships. We have triggers. We get triggers. And it's so hard. And you cry out to God and you say, God, I need you to help me with that. And that's what is so important. Sometimes people say words don't hurt. Words hurt in marriage because coming from somebody you really, really care about. Adam and Eve didn't have a template. There were no other couples there for them to glean from, to gather info, and to get any reference from. So I want you to understand something that today is just so, so critical for you to get this, that every relationship, every one of them costs something. Like I said, it has its own DNA. I don't wish for anyone else's marriage because I know what it takes to hold it together, to pray together, to keep it together, and to be able to walk it out. So when you see Adam and Eve, when you see the first story, they had to deal with the loss of a son. One son murdering another son. In fact, this is our family. And in the family, here is a crisis in the family. And one son, now here comes the hurt and the disappointment, the trauma. First family of the Bible had their first trauma. And there's times in people in the church, they want you to have a perfect family and a perfect marriage. Baby, don't work like that. Every one of us are going to go through something in our families. I know in my family, my daughter got pregnant out of wedlock. I know in my family, we went through so many different changes with our children. We had to go through some, and we were right there to love them. We were right there to pray for them. We go through so many different things in families, whether we're the first family of the church or the first family of the United States. The first family in the Bible, it started there in Genesis. And listen, remember this, God chose his wife. God chose Eve for Adam, and they still had a crisis. Their family still didn't survive easily. They were put out of the Garden of Eden, even though God chose his wife. Even though God chooses your spouse, don't believe that every day you wake up is going to be perfect. Sometimes when I look on Facebook and I see people married 20 years, and I say, oh, wow, that is so nice. 38 years, wow, that is so nice. And then next time I come back, I see they're not together. And I say, oh my goodness. Oh, I see somebody married for a year. And after a year, you don't see the person, their husband on the picture anymore. You don't see their wife on their Facebook page anymore. They're gone. Why? They didn't survive. They didn't survive. Marriage is not easy. It takes work. Even when God chooses someone for you, it takes work. That's one. What about Naomi? Let's talk about Naomi and let's talk about her for a minute because this is so important that we talk about Naomi and Elimelech. Let's think about that for a minute. He takes his family, right, from Judah, the house of bread, and takes them to Moab. And in the way to living in Moab, he loses both of his sons within a span of 10 years. Sons are gone. They marry the wives of Moab. They come in and they marry them. Listen, Naomi becomes bitter. She loses her husband, loses both of her sons. Another family in the Bible in a crisis. I believe, and it's said, when you do the research, you'll find out Elimelech was one of the richest men, and he did not want to share his wealth in a town where there was famine. That's why he moved to Moab. When he moved to Moab, I don't believe that Naomi had a choice. I believe in those days, whatever the man said, go. And they packed up and they moved. In his disobedience to God by moving out of Judah into the home of the Moabites, he then pays the price for leaving the house of God and go out, take his wealth and move. But what happens when we make mistakes like that? It involves the whole family. It involves the whole family. I remember, I can think back of times when I told my husband, don't do that, honey, don't do it. And he said, well, I'm going to do it. And then here it comes. Didn't work. And he don't want to hear, I told you so. Absolutely not. And sure enough, it comes to pass. It's the same way. I don't think Naomi could tell her husband, don't do that. Because at that time, the man had the power. He had the wealth. He did it. And so now she's left without a husband and without her sons. But she didn't realize she wasn't left without a big God. He didn't leave her. No matter, and that's what you have to realize in your marriage. God does not leave us. He's right there. That's why I don't know if people can marry without him. It's a threefold cord, not easily broken. I can't be married without God. I can't afford to marry nobody that don't know God. I can't. Because at least if he knows God, God can work on his heart. The Bible said the king's heart is in God's hand. I'm sure there's times my husband is glad that I know God so he can talk to God about me, because I'm not the easiest person. When I make up my mind to do something, I'm going to do it too. And so I'm sure he's had to pray many prayers. Lord, speak to my wife in her sleep. Do something, because he knows if he tells me, I'm going to be like, nope, I'm set. I'm going to do it this way. And don't let God tell me. It's like, don't even talk. God has already spoken. So I'm sure in our relationships, these are the things that happen. And I'm sure Elimelech never gave Ruth a second thought to say, honey, what do you think? He's like, nope, we're going to move. And in it, here the Bible says, think about it for a minute. Naomi becomes bitter. She becomes bitter with the situation that has happened to her because of this move. One of the things I want to remind each and every one of us dealing with relationships, marriage does not complete us, ever. Don't ever think when you meet a man or a woman, they complete you. Absolutely not. Colossians says it this way, I am complete in God. If you, listen, I am nobody's better half. I don't want to be a half of nothing. Because if they leave, that means I don't have nothing to stand on. It's only half of me. I don't want to be a half. I want to be a completely whole person in a relationship. I want to be able to think for myself. I want to be able to bring things to the table that when we come together, we agree. So don't let anybody tell you, oh, you're the better half. No, you're not a half of anything. You're whole. The Bible says we become one. That's the mystery of God. He makes us one in him. And listen, can you imagine how Naomi felt disappointment after disappointment? It can be very difficult to recover from these types of hardships. And it can cause many of us to become bitter. When we lose a house, lose a relationship, you have invested everything in this marriage. You're putting your money, you're putting your time in this marriage, and now it's falling apart. And you really need God in this season, because you can become bitter. You can become angry. You can get to a place where you don't trust anymore. You put your heart in a box and you say, hey, don't let nobody else in there. Nobody else is going to treat me like that. That's what winds up happening so many times in relationships. After being wounded, after being hurt, we're just like, I don't want to. You're going to have to talk to God, because I don't want nothing to say. Just because we have been so hurt. But for this couple, the story we learn is how to heal and forgive after losses. She lost her home, she lost her resources, and she even lost her hope. When you have nothing left to give, you'll discover God is all you ever needed. Think about it for a minute. Have you ever been in a season in your life where you feel like, man, I've given, and there's nothing left to give? And then you still got to hold on to God. Here comes God. Many people are widowed. Some have lost loved ones. During this pandemic, we have seen it. So many people. I counsel so many. I have one lady that I can think of right now. She lost her husband during the pandemic, and she said, Pastor, it's so empty. It's so void. We have been together for so many years. And to wake up and he doesn't bring my coffee, and to wake up he's not calling my name, and to wake up he's not there to have dinner with me. He said, Pastor, I can't explain to you the pain of not having him. So she gets on the prayer line with me, or she'll call me and she'll tell me, and she said, Pastor, I never thought it would hurt this bad. I thought by now. He passed away last year. I think we spoke a couple of days ago. She's still hurting. Because in the morning when they got up, they're in the warm weather, he'd bring her coffee out to her. He would get up with her, pray with her, he'd get up and talk to her and encourage her, and he's gone, lost. And now she's trying to find her way by herself. And it's not that she minds. The thing is how. How do you pick up the pieces and begin to rebuild when you look across the room, or you pick up his shirt and you smell him and he's still a part of your life and you're trying to get rid of him, and then you open a box to see a picture, or, and it's so hard, so difficult in this pandemic to have suffered loss and lost a loved one. But often these are the things that push us closer to God. These are the things that really, really cause us to get closer and closer to God. I tell you, listen, live every day like it's an amazing day. Because when I look around and see how many people are being tested in marriages, in churches, in relationships, you really have to consider, listen, everyone's not going to be married. Everyone is, you might as well just, let me tell you, let's be sister here. Every one of us as women will not marry. And it doesn't mean that you're not a good person, doesn't mean you're not attractive, does not mean any of that. But you may never meet that compatible person that really makes you say, I'm ready to do this. Because if you're not ready to die, and when I talk die to the things that you like, you're not really ready to marry. Because when you get married, you have to die to a lot of things. Especially if you've been single for a long time, where you handle your own money and you bought what you wanted and you did what you wanted and you went when you wanted and you came when you wanted. All of a sudden it's whoop, stop. All of a sudden you realize, oh, I can't do it like that. And a lot of women are not ready for that. They're not ready. They're not ready to share their checkbook. Men are not ready to share their time, their football time, their sports time, their hanging out with the guys, their golf time. So sometimes you find both parties are just not ready to give it up and make that commitment, because marriage is a commitment. You said in sickness, you said in health, sickness, you made that vow that no matter what, you were going to hang together. And remember, after the first year, you were like, you know what? This is overrated. Stick to this. What about if you get married in the first year and one of the parties become immobile? They can't move, they can't walk. There's an accident. I remember when Bishop Jake said his wife was in a car accident and her ankle was broken and she couldn't walk. He had to pick her up. And then she couldn't wait for one day, just put back on her high heels one more time because her ankle was so destroyed in the accident. How many of us would stay with someone that is wounded and hurt in an accident, or something's going on in their lives? They're not the same person you married. Something has happened. How many of us would actually stay in a relationship after we've gone through so many things? Think about it for a minute. That's exactly what happens when you're in a marriage. You got to hang in there. You got to stay the course. And out of Naomi and Ruth, out of Naomi and Ruth's story, here come now Ruth and Boaz. They're now another couple. They're now coming together. And just imagine, Ruth is serving Naomi, and Naomi's bitter, but yet still, she sees enough about her God to make her want to stay with this woman, walk with her as a mentor, as a friend. And so many times in marriages, I tell you, let me tell you something. Never let go of all your friends for a marriage. Never do that. Always got a sister friend. Always have somebody you can talk to, whether it's your natural sister, a girlfriend. Have somebody you got, a mother in the church, somebody that you can run things by, somebody you trust to talk to. I love my husband, love talking to him, but I can't tell him everything. I can't have to talk to God about some stuff, and some stuff is just stuff you talk to your mom about or your sister about. What do you think about this? Because you never know, sometimes, especially if a man is watching a football game, you don't talk during a football game. Don't. I tried that. It didn't work. It didn't go over very well. My daughter said, Mommy, stop it. Because she's a football addict. My son is a football addict, and so is my husband. So Sunday afternoon after church, I'm tired. I'm trying to cuddle up, and my husband is leaping up off the floor, and he's jumping and screaming, and my kids are like, Mom, can you just go to your room because you're in the way? And I'm thinking, I said, I'm tired. You see, because off season, I just come home and I just lay on my chair. And they're like, Mom, no, this is not the time for that. And so everybody's leaping and excited about things. Don't ask my husband a question during the game. Ask him a question. I said, wait a minute. I was not accustomed to that. I never dealt with that before. I had to learn. During the football season, some things you just don't do. And don't get mad about it. I was getting mad. I was salty. because it was my time. Church is over. We can talk. Don't talk during a football game. Actually, hurt your feelings. And I'm just like, I said, just ask the question, not now. So I learned that. See what I'm talking about? Marriage. Something just as simple as that. They don't want you in that space. That's their space where they want to watch the game. Well, I taught my husband a lesson. It's called Hallmark time. When I'm watching Hallmark, I'm going to do you the same way you did me during football season. The day after Thanksgiving till January 1st, don't try me. I have on my Hallmark socks, my Hallmark blanket, and I'm watching Hallmark. And if you want to watch sports, go downstairs in your man cave because ain't nothing happening up here going to say anything for sports. Okay? So now he told him, oh, I don't watch no Hallmark. He comes in now, he said, babe, did Hallmark movies come out yet? The new ones? And I was like, what did you say? He said, yeah, we're going to watch Hallmark. I said, oh, so now I got a Hallmark buddy. Do you know how long it took for him to do that? He was talked about me so bad until he went to Houston, Texas, and his friend Pastor West was watching Hallmark. And he's like, oh, pastors watch Hallmark. I can watch Hallmark with you. Excuse me? And he started watching Hallmark. So you see, marriages evolve. And when I first started watching it, he talked about me so bad. Hey, I know what the beginning going to be, and I know what the end going to be. I'm not watching Hallmark. They say the same thing every time. But guess what? Guess who's waiting for Hallmark new series to come out? Marriage. It's all about marriage. It's all about your relationship. And what you learn to do is build your marriage. Not everybody. I don't want Kathy's marriage. I don't want Betty's marriage. This is mine. And I have to learn to build that every day with God. And so when you look at all of the marriages in the Bible, from the beginning, from Genesis, every marriage had its own problem. You're not going to marry somebody and everything is okay, whether it's a blended family. My husband and one of his daughters, it's like that's his buddy. They talk about everything. That's it. Myself and Brittany. Brittany calls me 8, 9 times a day. I remember when I first got married, my husband said, is that for real? Is she for? That's how she calls you all day long? I said that if I were you, I wouldn't say nothing. Don't tell her. I'm going to tell you right now, just let her call me all day long. Because if she feels that you don't want her to talk to her mom, it's not going to be good. That's her mom. You see? And he had to learn. When Brittany called, now he tells me, oh, it's Brittany. That's it. My son Anthony calls at 8:30 in the morning. He says, Mom, how's your day? Have a good day. Bye. That's done. He's done till tomorrow. Girls don't do that. And we had to learn how to be able to accept each other's children and just keep it moving. All these are things you're going to learn in marriage. Blended families are not easy. Dads and their daughters, not easy. Just stay out of the way. That's what you're going to understand. And so as we walk in these marriages, we get to where we see now Boaz and Ruth. We're looking at Boaz and Ruth. She wasn't even expected to be where she is today. What I love about this story is that her testimony went before her. Boaz said, I heard how you treated your mother-in-law. He had observed her. He had heard. You know, in small towns, things whisper. When people come back home to a small town, oh, you hear so-and-so is back in town. I heard Naomi's back in town, and she brought back a daughter-in-law with her. When I go home to the islands, I can tell you in a minute, oh, I heard Apache's daughter's back in town. Y'all seen her yet? That's how they talk when you come from a small town, small country. Everybody knows everybody. And so now here it is that Boaz and Ruth is in this story, and here they come. Mother-in-law and a daughter now heading out. And Naomi's now ready to return to her home, and she is taking Ruth back with her. And Boaz recognizes Ruth's honesty, her care for her mother-in-law, and her testimony goes before her. The Bible even says that he left handfuls on purpose for her. He told his workers, don't touch that one. He never said he loved her now. He never said that, but he just told them, just protect her, keep a guard over her. Boaz saw Ruth working hard in the field, and he was initially attracted to her. When my producer wrote this, I like this. She said after hearing her story, he wanted to help her and instructed his workers to protect her and look out for her and leave her grain. He was protecting her and looking out for her even before they were married. That's something we want. You know, men like to chase. I like to be chased. What about you? I ain't chasing you. I'm not chasing you. I love the chase. I like when you have to call me and act like I'm busy, but I really was waiting for the call all day long. I like to feel like you're coming after me. And I think women, I think God built us for the chase. I want one. How about you? Don't act like you don't want to be chased. I saw something on Facebook the other day. I saw a girl ask a man to marry him. I was like, what? She was actually kneeling down and asking the guy to marry. I thought that was retarded. Sorry, y'all can hit the button if you want to leave. I am not chasing you. That God never built me to do the chase. I like the person that chases the woman, goes after them, reaches out to them, calls them. I remember when I was dating my husband, and anybody who knows my husband knows he has a deep voice. And so when he would call from England, he said, yeah, I'd call you at 4 o'clock every day so you know when to be home. And when he said hi, I was like, oh, yes, sir. Hi. You know, something began to happen. I don't know about you. That voice, everybody knows his voice. You're like, yes. And my kids would laugh at me. You know, I remember when I was in England and he first told me he was interested. Pastor Arnie was my armor bearer when I was in England. And she said, Pastor, you acting a little bit different. I said, Arnie, the Lord just told me that's my husband, but I can't tell him. And she was like, Pastor, she had me cracking up. But I couldn't tell him. The Lord told me that was him, but I couldn't tell him. I had to wait for him to come after me. Listen, don't miss the chase. Don't be anxious and run out there. Hey guys, if you really like her, go after her, man. Let her know you like her. To pursue her. Some of you are afraid you're gonna get your feelings hurt. Don't be worried about your feelings, man. Go get her. Go get that girl. Tell her you love her. Send her notes. Make it special. Listen, you get a lot of things when you put honey out there. You put that honey out there, man, you're gonna get some bees. So I'm gonna tell you right now, put some honey out there, write her a letter, send her notes, call her. If you pursue her with love, she's gonna respond. I'm telling you. Women, listen, it's not hard to submit to a man that shows you they love you. It is not hard. Submission ain't no hard word when you feel the love coming from someone. And when they pursue you, and men do not just pursue to get married, pursue after marriage. Because women love to be chased. They love to know. And women, study your husband. Minister to them. Even when it's tough sometimes. Marriage is not easy. But you still got to keep that chase going. So it's important. A man that is interested in you will show his interest. He will not have to wonder what he's thinking or how he feels. He will show it. Listen, he will want to provide and keep you safe. So that's what you see in between Ruth and Boaz. You see that chase that he saw her. And then she goes to Naomi and Naomi said, come on, honey, let me tell you what to do. That's the mother in us. You go that night, lay at his feet, pull his robe right over you, just stay right there and don't say nothing. She told, don't talk, just lay right there. She told her exactly what it was like to go after him once you realized that he wanted to pursue her. Listen, you have to learn a lot from that story. She was fiercely loyal, resourceful, and a hard worker. She was open to receiving godly counsel. How many of us are really, really open to receive counsel from someone regarding our relationship? And I think that's something that's important. Whenever you meet somebody and it's got to be a big secret, I tell them all the time, if you date somebody and they can only take you out late at night when it's dark, something wrong with that. They don't take you around their family. They don't take you out in the daytime. They can't pick you up. It's just all this, something, you're hiding something. Women, don't waste your time. You ain't got no time. If me and you can't hang out, broad daylight. If we can't no. If I can't meet your mother and I've been seeing you for 6 months, I'm wrong. You've got to get to a place in life where you have some standards that you've set for your relationship. You have a way that you want to date, and I call it basically courting. How do you court someone? How do you get them to know what you really like? It's by talking a lot. So many times in relationships, we don't really talk. And it's time to talk if you're really ready to do something. Listen, Boaz was not looking to be with her for one night. As Christians, we can't afford to be in one night stands. That's not for us. That's why so many of our young women are getting knocked up in church and getting pregnant. It's not, you're not nobody's mistress. You're not nobody's one night stand. No, love yourself better than that. Not going home with you. I tell the girls all the time, I said, listen, take your car. Let him take his car. Don't bow away. Don't be needy. Don't make them feel like, oh, she's needy. She's going down tonight. No, you're not going down. Don't do that. Have a standard. Before you even start dating, know what you're going to do. Because when they dim those lights, listen, I'm not coming over your house to watch TV. I knew that. Pastor Neville and I'll tell you right now, there's no way I'm going to sit and watch TV with you, Pastor Neville, coming from England. I ain't seen you in 3 months. And we're going to just cuddle up in front of the TV? No, we're not going to do that. That's not going to work. And so many times people put themselves in situations and the next thing they know, they're blowing. Next Friday, they're repenting and they're going back again and they're repenting again. I don't want to live a repenting life every Friday night. I want to just do it right. If I'm good enough to date you for 6 months, it's time for you to make a decision. You don't need to date me for 5 years to know if I'm your wife. That's the reality. We can be friends, but when we start dating or courting, it's not going to take you that long. Ask me anything. Let's get this going. Find out about what you're getting yourself involved in. I met my husband in March. We were married in September. And I said right now, I told the Lord, God, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to listen. Because he was coming from England and we were dating and we were going out. I knew what was going to happen if we kept going much longer. You know, that's the truth. And so it's just important for us, if you find the person that God has for you, set good boundaries and get yourself together for marriage and not just date for years open-ended and then wind up hurting each other. Don't do that. That's not what God planned for us. God wanted Ruth and Boaz to come together because it was a bigger plan. You know, that's the lineage of David. God had a plan for that. God has a plan for your life. First, you got to ask God, are you going to be married? And if you are going to be married, where is your husband? Where is your wife? Your husband may not be in the same geographical location as you. Your wife may not be. They may be in another town, another city, another country. But you got to ask God. And once God shows you that's your spouse, pursue them. Go after her. Chase her. Put the chase on. Don't be afraid to chase her. And women respond. You know, let me help you. A lot of people tell me all the time, Pastor, Black women have this neck thing. They have this neck thing. They're going to tell you a piece of their mind and they go, no. We got to get past that. We have to realize when somebody's really interested in us, we've got to show them care and concern and love. It's important that we do that. So I want you today to listen, think about it. Get the neck out of the way and all of that. And begin to think about, if that's the person God had for you, how am I going to minister to him? Kathy and I talked about that when we talked about DNA of marriage, how every marriage has its own DNA. Once you know that person is who God had for you, quit playing with him, acting like you don't know. Right? At least we're just friends. Church people love to use that line. We're just friends. Y'all just friends, but y'all just finished kissing. Y'all just finished touching. That's what friends do. That look like it's gone more than friends to me. So I'm telling you right now, if you know that's more than a friend, stop playing the person and talking about we just friends. Because y'all done passed friendship a long time ago. Tell the truth. Let's do it. Let's get married. Let's do it right. That's what God wants us to be able to do. So important that we do that. And when you look at this story of Ruth, and when you look at Boaz, you see how God had already orchestrated everything. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz, they all suffered loss. Everybody dealt with something. But they made a choice to open their heart again. How many of us, after we've been hurt, say, I'm never, not going to get married again. I'm not going into another relationship. This is it. What you did was you closed your heart. And it's so important for you to know you've got to keep your heart open. You've got to be open to whatever God has for you. It's critical. It's critical. It's so important that you don't do that. Don't allow your heart to become hardened by the things of God. It's so important. I want you to send me a note. Tell me, ask me some questions regarding relationships that you're dealing with. Maybe there's something that you're going through that you're dealing with. Let's talk about Hannah. How many of you all ever read 1 Samuel about Hannah and Elkanah? Now this man's married to 2 wives. What in the world? And now I don't know what was wrong with his head. I really don't know. But who wants to be in a relationship with 2 women? One is bad enough. One is just not. That's not it. So I want you to think for a minute. He's married to 2 women, and one is provoking the other. Can you imagine what that was like for her to know that she wanted to produce, but she couldn't produce? God had shut up her womb. Do you know how many couples fight with infertility for years, cannot have kids? sometimes never have kids, have had to adopt, have had to maybe take foster children in. They just have never had kids. And in this particular story, the Bible said that God shut up her womb. So what I want you to understand is that so many times things happen in your life that you don't understand why God has allowed it. You don't understand why it's been done to you, but it does happen. And so you have to be very, very careful that when you hit some place in life in your marriage, whether it's a loss of a job, maybe it's a sickness in the body. You can't do like you used to do. You can't go like you used to go. You have to give room in your relationship for those times and those things that you deal with. Sarah was not the first. Rebecca was not the first, and Rachel was not the first. Neither was Hannah. There were so many different women in the Bible that dealt with infertility, and I see it today. So many women write and cry out and ask for prayer because now women are getting married older, and they wanted children, but they waited late and they were not able to have children, and they have to deal with that. The pain of infertility has been around since the beginning of time. I have one lady that every Mother's Day she'd remind me, she said, Pastor, when you pray for the mothers, remember to pray for the mothers who had children, but they died or never was able to produce. She said, Pastor, I got pregnant and my baby didn't live. And every Mother's Day, when the church says, Happy Mother's Day to the ones who have their children, it hurts because I had a baby, but the baby didn't live. Never thought of that. But it happens. She wanted a child. She's never had one since. So many women deal with infertility. So many women deal with waiting late to be married and have to deal with these different issues. But I want you to know it's a tough one that so many are dealing with. But you have to walk with unwavering faith. Believe in God, no matter what you find yourself in. Well, I was in a meeting today and I was thinking about how many of us battle so many different things in relationship. When you get married, you're thinking, oh, everything is well. My husband, after so many years of marriage, battled a cancer that almost took him out. When the doctors looked at me and told me, I don't think that he can make it, or the nurses would tell me he couldn't make it, I had to fight for that season of my life, not to fall apart while pastoring the church and holding on to our family. What is it that you want God to do for you in your life, in your marriage? Where do you hurt? How can we pray for you in your relationship? Relationships aren't easy, not easy at all. You see, and why her husband had to watch her every day be depressed. She battled depression because she wanted to have a child and was never able to produce. And he said to her, am I not better to you than 5 sons? Am I not better to you than your children? What he was trying to say, take your eyes off of her, just love on me. And she was like, no, I was created to produce. I want to produce. I want a child. I've watched many times couples go through that. I prayed for many couples who, I remember in New York City, I was in a service and a couple came up and they wanted a child. And they said, Pastor, would you pray? A year later, they came back and said, we have a daughter. We were in South Africa. We saw that. Listen, it's so, so important. Well, somebody sent us a question. They want to know about the competition between the two women. I said, do they want to know about Hannah? We may want to know about that. Okay, somebody wants to know about the competition between the two women. You know what? That's not going to happen. Bottom line, that should never have happened. Because nobody needs to be in a relationship competing with a man and another woman. I'm not doing that. No competition there. Listen, if we're going to be married, we're going to be in the relationship. It's going to be one person. And I think what happened there is because of the culture of the day, they were allowed to have two women. But the thing about it is that Hannah was not producing where Peninnah was producing. And so that's where the competition and all of that come in. But in today's culture, that's not supposed to be. God didn't ordain. He said one man, one woman. That's what he gave us in Genesis. That's it. I'm not going to share my husband with someone. That's not going to happen. Okay. That's not going to happen. That's not how I plan to live. No, if that's what he wants to do, he'll have to do it by himself. But I won't be in that kind of relationship. That causes a lot of issues and problems in a relationship. I know, coming from the island, we saw that a lot. A man always had a wife and a mistress. That was something that was normal. They had as many kids with the mistress as they did with their wives. They did it. I watched it growing up as a child. My dad has 14 children, 5 with my mom. Everything else was outside.
He had 5 with the second wife, and I can't tell you how many on the outside. And to them, that was normal. There was no big deal, and the wife was okay with it. They brought the babies home from the mistress to the house, like, and I'm like, who in the world? But it was a part of the culture. They just did. But I don't believe walking with God. I have to live with that. And when you learn to love yourself, there's a lot of things you just don't live with. You just don't tolerate. But you've got to love yourself and able to do that. So I don't see the competition today that they had between Hannah and Peninnah. And as what I can see, it really was not even a competition, was the fact that one was producing and one wasn't producing. And the pain of not producing pushed her into that place. And as many women, we can be petty. Women can be petty, man. In church, they can be. Man, I've watched women walk into church and try some stuff to talk to my husband and say things to me and disrespect me. One lady came to the church one day and she said, the church I was in, the pastor's wife got fat and he started flirting with me. And I said, that's okay. I'll be praying for you because my husband married me fat and he ain't going to be flirting with you. That's what I said to her. That's what she told me, bold enough to tell me that where she was, the pastor flirted with her because his wife got fat. And I said, when he met me, I was already fat. We good. She looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I looked back at her like she had 10. I don't play little girly games. I don't play games like that. But I've been told a lot of things in these 30 years of pastoring about marriage, about people, about my husband, about being first lady, and how I should be as a first lady, and how I should wear my hats, and how I should wear suits, because that's what a first lady does. And I don't play the role of a first lady very well. And my face tells everything, and I'm this and I'm that. And I hear that all the time. And you know what I said? Take my place. Take it. See how you respond. See how you act if you sit in my shoes. And until then, you don't have much to tell me because you ain't in my spot. You see, as women, I don't play petty games. Anybody that know me, you don't want to come for me. I'm not the one. And I don't need my husband to back me up. I'm good all by myself. You've got to get to a place where you know who you are and whose you are. And you're not going to tolerate foolishness. I just don't. Never did. Never in my relationships, never with my children. Don't touch my children. You better just leave them alone. And my husband, nope, I don't get in that. Now, if he does something on his own, that's it. But I don't play that. I've watched so many. I minister to wives all around the country and around the world. Pastors' wives who have been beat down, who have been betrayed, who have gone through so many different things in relationship, and they stay. I have one young lady who had to literally sign an agreement that she would never discuss her husband's infidelities. She had to sign a paper in the church that she would never discuss what he had done. Let me tell you something. I don't have time for church games. And I have no problem being single, and I love being married. But if I had to walk single, I'm okay. And that's what you have to realize. You have to love yourself enough to know, if I have to walk by myself, I do that. Because I love myself too much. And the only reason you stay in a relationship is that you're waiting on God to give you instructions. But you don't stay there and be beat down and abused and just like nothing. No, don't do that. Men or women. God never called us to be abused. God called us to love one another, care for one another. That's what marriages ought to be about. It's being able to love somebody and they love you back. And then the days you don't feel like loving each other, that you just get in your own space, and the next couple of hours you'll be okay. But so many times we see this happening. Listening, sometimes the wait is long to meet the person that you want. But if you just hang in there and wait on God, He'll direct your path. He will. Don't worry about the people who laugh at your calamity. That's what Peninnah did. She laughed at Hannah's broken areas, not realizing God was going to cause her to produce. And the Bible says when Hannah began to produce, she had 5 more children after she produced Samuel. See, don't laugh at somebody in their calamity. Don't do it. I remember in the book of Obadiah, the Lord said, you shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have got in the way of my children. You shouldn't have hindered them. You see, we all belong to one God. And when your sister or brother is going through a broken area in their life, don't laugh at them. Don't talk about their kids. When somebody's kids get pregnant, don't you dare talk about them, especially if you have a child. You have a son out there, don't talk about somebody else's son, because we never know when our children are going to do something that you're not pleased with. Because no matter how much you raise them, you can't watch them 24/7. And when they get old enough, they're going to do them.
and you still have to love them right where they are. So as we're going through this series this month and we're talking about these marriages, Pastor Kim is going to be on. She's going to be talking about her battle with lupus. We were traveling all over the world, and she came home last year, right during COVID, and battled lupus. And the doctors were telling her she wasn't going to go through, she was going to do this. And today she's going to tell you her story. My sister and her husband have been married over 30 years. And God tells them, listen, you got to move from New York to Dallas. They're in Dallas now. And that transition was one of the toughest times for my sister. I watch her stressed out as she began to obey God and move. Even when God tells you to do something as a couple, doesn't mean it's going to be an easy journey. She had to stay in New York. Her husband stayed in Dallas. The transition was so difficult in the midst of COVID. Then we have Dr. Coburn out of Denver that's going to be with us. They were in a religious organization, and then God called them out for her to start to do a work in ministry. And they had to leave and begin to do a work in ministry. And do you know that they were talked about? Do you know things were said? They lost family members, they lost friends because they obeyed God. So many stories, when you hear these couples' stories of the things they have been through to obey God, you're going to see, no matter what it is, I don't care who you marry, somewhere in that marriage is going to be tested. And I'm going to tell you, if you live with them long enough, at least 3 different seasons of testing. The marriage goes through, we're in a season now in our marriage where we have no children at home, it's just us, but our bodies are starting to hurt. We wake up in the morning, we don't know which leg gonna feel good. Wake up in the morning, we don't have the back. Listen, we look at each other and we be cracking up because we wake up in the morning, we're like, okay, my husband wake up and my husband's very strong, very active. He said, oh, my shoulder. I'm like, what today? He says, my shoulder, I think I slept on it wrong. And then the next day wake up and we're going through a whole different phase of our lives now. Our bodies are getting older. We can't go. My daughter said to me, Mom, come on. I said, I'm talking to my knee. As soon as I tell my knee we can move, I'll be there. She said, Mom, what in the world are you saying? I said to her, listen, I'm just telling you where I am in life. I'm coming out the car. She jumps out like she's 36, like she is. I want me to jump out like 36, and I'm 66. And I said to her, I have to talk to the knee and tell it, let's go. We have work to do. And once again, she said, Mom, I'm done. I'm done with you. Yeah, I do. I said, I'm just telling you, life moves in phases. I was going through with my knee. I had to have a knee replacement. So I get to a Walmart and I said, I'm going to ride the cart in Walmart today. My son said, nope, you're not with me. You're not riding the cart. I said, I'll see you later. He took a picture of me with the camera and sent it to his sister and said, could you believe my mother is riding the cart in Walmart? She's riding the cart in Walmart with me, her. And I'm just laughing my head off because I'm just as comfortable riding the Walmart. And he's taking pictures of me and sending it to my daughter and saying, look at our mother. And I'm saying, y'all, I said, you know what? Go ahead. I said, y'all go ahead and laugh because I'm going to be right here. And a couple of weeks ago, Brittany said, Mom, could you get me some of those support stockings you have? Because my feet are starting to hurt. I'm on my foot. I said, oh, you want those stockings you laughed at? The same ones? She said, yeah, Mom, my feet hurt. I said, you're just 36. You see, life comes with so many changes. And I tease my kids. My husband teased me at one time. I was coming down the step, and I was coming down one step at a time, taking my time. And he said, babe, come on. I said, babe, I can't. I'm coming on the way I know how to come on. Well, he was shoveling the snow and twisted his knee. And next Sunday, he was coming down the step the same way I was coming down. And here's what I said to him. God has a sense of humor. I said, because you were just teasing me. He said, babe, I'll never do that again. I promise you. I said, because things happen so fast in life, in marriages, and we've got to be there for one another. We can't afford to laugh at somebody else's calamity, what somebody else is going through. Absolutely not. Marriage is hard all by itself. And the last thing we need is not to be caring and kind to one another. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope I said something to encourage you. Get ready for our stories coming up in the next few weeks of couples that survive some of the toughest things in relationships. God bless you. Thank you for joining me tonight on Let's Talk.